Today, I have the pleasure to talk to Tae Yu. Tae, you are the Senior Vice President Corporate Affairs at Cisco, and with all the developments currently going on, it's even a more important role. And if we look to the future, I believe, and I think you believe, in an inclusive future, and this is the foundation for our society. But what role can organizations play to achieve this?
So, what we wanted to ensure is that as a stakeholder in every community, so whether it's in the US or any other country, we have a presence there, either directly with our own employees or with our partners or our customers. And so, we are a stakeholder grounded in various communities around the world. And we really believe that economic development and social development and all of that is very additive to the development of a community or a country. So when you look at it from that perspective, inclusion becomes incredibly important because it's local people who actually can solve local problems. It's local people who understand what the local markets look like, and they're able to innovate and bring products and solutions to market. And so when we exclude people, then we're actually not doing our communities any kind of service. And so we believe that if we can have a truly inclusive environment, that it will bring out the best in everyone, build strong communities, increase innovation, and create economic development for everybody.
And on one hand, we have the corporates, but on the other hand, we have the individuals. And based upon your experience, how can individuals really prepare themselves to be more resilient and to be more future ready for such a dynamic world that we are living in?
So I think that's something both companies and individuals need to be very proactive in. As we know, we live in a dynamic world. The things that we learned 5 years ago are additive and sometimes the foundation on which we can move forward. But the reality is that technology changes so quickly that there are additional skills that enables us to attain. And so when we are, especially when you're at home and wondering about what you should do, there's so many opportunities to learn and new skills that you can work with. And I think companies also need to create a culture of constant learning. And that's one of the things that we take great pride in at Cisco is that we know how dynamic the world is. We have the good fortune and pleasure of having amazing customers who actually push us as well. It's through their eyes and their lens that we see the direction that the economy is going in, what the needs are, what their opportunities and innovation requirements are. So that forces us to constantly be changing. And as a result of that, we constantly try and create an environment where our employees are constantly learning. And it's a journey we're all taking because, as we all know, the jobs of the future are not clear. In some instances, I think a certain significant portion of the jobs of the future are yet to be created by entrepreneurs and innovators who work in companies or social enterprises or for the public sector. And so what we want to ensure is that we're constantly pushing ourselves and creating an environment of perpetual learning.
And you mentioned that people need to be resilient, but also organizations need to be resilient. And Cisco is a resilient organization surviving already for many, many, many decades. How can organizations prepare for these substantial changes or even maybe a new crisis in the near future?
So I want to be humble here because we have weathered many storms, but I think that the resiliency is always a work in progress, and we have to constantly push ourselves. So it's not just us telling other people what they should do. I think we ourselves have embarked on a massive four-pillar approach to resiliency, or anything that happens in times of crisis or any kind of change. And so when you think about what happens when we are faced with COVID or any other pandemic, big market transitions, that we want to ensure first and foremost that we address the most vulnerable. Which is how do we ensure that we are including and enabling those who are the most vulnerable in all of our respective global communities to make sure that they have access to the care and basic needs that they have. We also really look at our families and communities with our own employees, and partnerships with our customers. And then we look at, resilience and rebuilding in terms of partnering with customers and academic institutions, working on technology solutions that help further their goals of finding cures and other innovations. And then last but not least is how do we strategically rebuild and remake, our communities in a way that we are in tune with the latest opportunities, not just rebuild as it used to be. So, for instance, one of the most important things that I and many others have talked about is high quality access to internet services. Broadband being affordable, high quality, and available to everyone. And we're seeing now the gap, because we have always believed that with new technologies we'd be able to bridge a lot of gaps. And what's happening is that we can do that. The capability is there, but the enabler is internet access. So when you think about 1.5 billion children in 188 countries who now have to go home and continue their educations on distance learning, what happens to those who don't have access to the internet? This is a really important issue of inclusion. Then they are left behind. And what about if you were in a job? I mean, I think they said 81% of the world's workforce has been impacted, and that we would have to work from home. And after this pandemic, that many jobs may go away. So while you're at home worrying about that, there's an opportunity for you to learn and update your skills. But if you don't have internet access, how are you able to do that? So that becomes critically important in terms of people's ability to attain skills, attain jobs, attain government services. So this is where it becomes really important that as we rebuild strategically, that the internet access for all, which by the way, I think is a human right, that it is available to everyone so that they are enabled to learn and provide for their families, their communities, and be able to look at the next generation of jobs that they would like to participate in.
Tay, thanks a lot for joining our show and for sharing all your learnings. And for the audience, thank you for watching and see you next time.